Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Ricardo. Hey Bryan, it's as a long time request in the comment section to your videos. It's time for you to meet Silencer from Sweden and one of the most extreme metal records ever, Death Pierce Me. So, this seems like a normal thing. What in the world? It's so extreme it won't be contained. Alright, there we go. Fixed. I did a little bit of research on it, given that it was extreme. Some of the research actually just came about from me just setting things up for the video. This is a depressive, suicidal black metal album, so I'm expecting a lot of extremity there in the vocals and the language, the topics of the lyrics. But I also found out that this album contains quite a bit of anti-Semitic, pro-Nazi lyrics in it. From what I could tell, this song does not, but it still deals a lot with death and self-harm. So, with all of that stated, do what you need to do. If you need to turn the video off and just completely skip this one, I do not blame you at all. But let's dive into it and see what Silencer is bringing to the table. With Sterile Nails and Thunderbowels. So far I've enjoyed the use of volume dynamics. The quiet sections are actually quiet, which is a nice change of pace. There's a nice melodic element to the guitar work.
Beyond mind is sleep to be found. I'm must stand and deliver! Beyond the mightiest lives they found!
STERILE Nails and Thunderbowels!
I don't understand. I don't understand the tone. I think that's my big problem right here is that there's certainly a majority of the song that is leaning into this overwhelming despair, right? That's the guitar work in the first half of the track. It's that really high-pitched, agonizing vocal. But then we get the last minute and a half of the track, which feels very high intensity, kind of fun. We shift from the draining, uh, dreary guitar lines for this energetic driving forward idea that's very typical for black metal, and we get a brand new vocal style that feels so far into parody or cheese that it's comical. Sterile nails and thunderbowels. Yeah. Like it does not it's tongue in cheek. It's completely undermining everything the song had set up at that point, and it completely colors the ending of the track as something facetious. Through that undermining of what they accomplished in the first half of the track, I can't help but feel like the entire thing is a parody. I was already having difficulty with the higher pitched vocal style. I was trying to appreciate it for what they were going for, which is anguish. But my only point of reference for this is not somebody in pain or turmoil, but a Sesame Street Muppet. So I already had a little bit of a comical edge. I was really trying to suppress it, like so trying to meet the art on its own terms, but when the art undermines what it's doing and brings comedy into it, I can't help but feel like the first half wasn't supposed to be taken seriously either. Now it feels like it's a parody of depressive, suicidal black metal, and maybe it's supposed to be. I mean, maybe the context for this, one of the most extreme black metal albums ever, is so exaggerated as the most extreme being described that way because the description is playing into the tongue-in-cheek aspect of the band itself. And now I'm confused. Is this band legit? Are they tongue-in-cheek? Are they purposefully leaning into cheese? I don't know. The fact that 3 out of the 5 tracks on this album with lyrics have anti-Semitic, pro-Nazi lyrics makes me think it's not supposed to be tongue-in-cheek. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can't take that stance satirically. But then that even leads to more confusion. If the music is satire but the lyrics are not, what does that mean about the project? We've had a couple DSBM songs on the channel before. The vocal style is, I think, going to be consistently the difficult part to get over. It's going to be the big hurdle for the genre, primarily because it's not a singing style. By definition, it's supposed to be something painful. It's not supposed to be something palatable. But I have found the past stuff I've listened to easier to take seriously than this. I would never list this. I mean, obviously, this is only 1 out of 6 tracks. I'm not going to listen to another track off this album, though. But listening to this track and assuming that the rest of the album is similar to it, this was selected because it was the best example. Maybe it's selected because the only one without Nazi imagery in it. I don't know. But this was selected to introduce me to the band Silencer, and it is. I'm entirely confused about what they're trying to do here, and that's never something that you want as a band. At least not in my experience with any art. I mean, there are certainly arts that you want to be a bit confusing, experimental, avant-garde, stuff like that, thought-provoking stuff. Trippy films, mind screws, but this seems to be on the nose about its style. It just doesn't know if it's taking itself seriously or not. And that's not to say it was all bad. The ending certainly undermined the beginning, but I think the beginning did a decent job at exploring what it wanted to. We had these beautiful, somber guitar lines. They were not quite as depressive as I think they probably should have been given what the vocals were doing, but they still brought this somber weight to them, and they were beautifully played as well. They didn't go into the ideas of dissonance to achieve that weight. It's just the dyads that they utilized really digging into really sorrowful sounds. Beautiful soundscapes. Then the vocals came in. We had this staggered dual vocal line that was interesting. I appreciate the layered vocals. I appreciate that they had their own rhythmic pulse to them, which makes sense because different vocal styles gravitate towards different rhythmic concepts. It's really nice to see each one lean into what it does best. The higher pitched one held out notes longer than the lower pitched one, which went for more of a rhythmic staccato approach. while still doing the same lines, and we got to see a bit of separation of ideas there. I'm well executed, I think. And then we had the single guitar line with the screaming. I don't know that there are words being said there, just anguish screaming, and it sets a tone. I'm not gonna say it completely worked for me artistically. It definitely did not work casually. That is just not my type of music. But like I said, I can't even say it worked artistically. It kind of did. It was 50-50 on it. I think for something like this, you have to, and this is going to sound really weird, but bear with me here. You have to be in the right mindset for. And it's not a mindset I think I could be in, or not one that I think I've experienced before. I have said it once, I will say it again. Music is an art form, it should be allowed to explore darkness. This is a pretty dark genre of music. It is about self-harm, it's about being depressed, it's about wanting to commit suicide. It is a dark topic, and I will continue to fight for its existence despite having not really enjoyed anything I've heard that's come out of it, and I don't think I would ever want to enjoy it. But I think as an art form, it should be allowed to exist. So I don't want anyone to say that I'm attacking the genre as a whole. But I'm just not sure that middle point came together. I don't know if it was the vocal delivery. I don't know if it was the beauty in the guitar work. I was not sold on the idea. And like I said, maybe it's a mindset thing. Maybe that isolated guitar with the shrill screaming works for some people, and they hear that and they're like, this is the most agonizing thing I've ever heard. I didn't get it though. And this was the beginning of the downfall for me because this took so long, and our outro, our transition into our next section was that sterile nails and thunderbowels. Yeah. Like, you can't do that seriously. So we had a section that didn't hit me emotionally the way they were aiming for, that pushed into parody. And then the ending was pretty typical black metal. 16th note picking on dual guitars, playing dyads with sad, dark musical relationships, note relationships. So I think that's going to be the end of the musical discussion there, because I pretty much tagged everything that went on. We'll hit the lyrics real quick. They're very short. Once again, before we dive into it, just another reminder. This is about suicide, as is the genre name. So again, if you don't want to check out the lyrics, I would say fast forward, but the next bit's the outro. So if you've been here before, you know what the outro is about. You can probably just close the video here. Vast souls and inhumans bitten by infected jaws. Abandoned minds and corpses lurking with molded eyes, lacerated bodies without mourners nodding in gallows. So we have heaps of bodies that are full of cuts and bites with no one who knew about them. They well, at least that's the picture that's painted, which I think lines up well with people who are suicidal. Not everyone who commits suicide feels lonely, but I do think loneliness is a strong component that leads into it. You think that no one would care if you were gone, right? So I think the idea that these corpses are lying here without mourners really ties into that feeling that is not 100% part of suicidal thoughts or tendencies, but definitely a strong component that would help lead, or that aids in the thought process of wanting to do this. Crushed skulls tasting the fur of dying cats. That's a weird sentence. Needles injecting pain, flammable skin, and deadly thirst. Beyond mind is sleep to be found. Leap from life, leave yourself, die with me. So he says life is pain, but beyond that you can find sleep, so die and be with me. I mean, it's pretty much the type of, I hate to say this too because I feel like this is diminishing again. I think there is an art form in this type of emotional exploration. All right? And again, I will say this, I'm not a fan of this type of lyric. But I'm not going to discount what it can do and just the sheer fact that it should exist. All right? Maybe some people find comfort in these really dark lyrics. And even if nobody did, I will still fight for them to exist. My problem right here, though, is the same problem I have with the music. It feels try hard. I wonder how many of these DSBM bands are young, right? There is an edginess to this that I don't think an adult would aim for when they wanted to talk about suicide or depression. There is a very blunt, uncritical lens that this depression is looked at, and it feels like a mask put on. Look how edgy and dark these lyrics are. We're talking about corpses. Look how we describe them. Like, that's not, to me, in my experience with people that I know who have experienced depression and who have had suicidal thoughts, this is not what they think about. And that's not to say that everybody who's suicidal has the same thoughts. I don't want to try to group that all together. But it's not usually about thinking of all the people who have killed themselves laying in a mound with no one crying for them and saying, this is good, this is what I need to be singing about. It just feels very edgelord, which feels very insincere, which ties back to the parody element. Um, and like I said, it just doesn't feel like an honest approach to singing about suicide and depression to me. It feels like a mask being put on, a stage presence. This is my character in the band. I'm a suicidal guy. Listen to me sing about suicide. Um, I don't know. It's just really difficult for me to take much of this seriously, and I think that is the exact opposite approach that anything this extreme in topic and darkness of art should have. It's not saying you can't poke fun or make art that is light of depression and suicide. I think it is in bad taste, but you could do that. And I feel like that's what's being done here, but it is not what I think someone would want to do. But I'm also looking at that from the angle of somebody who would make art like this in order to raise awareness of thoughts and brains like this. People who are depressive and feeling, have thoughts of suicide, and not somebody who's trying to be edgy by utilizing that as their face, the face of their sound. And I think that's the division of maturity. And that's why I think that these are made by younger kids. Maybe not even depressed themselves. Maybe they are depressed and this is their idea of depression. But to me, I don't want to downplay anyone's depression. If the vocalist is depressed, the vocalist is depressed. I don't want to say that they're not because they write edgy lyrics. But it just doesn't feel sincere to me on any level. And I think that's the final thing I want to say on it. Those are my thoughts on Silencer's Sterile Nails and Thunderbowel. Even the title. The title feels comical. It feels tongue-in-cheek. It feels like toilet humor. And again, I don't want to look down on that. I love toilet humor. This is just not the setting I would expect it. It's not the setting that it works well in. it undermines what I think the lyrics and sound are trying to do in most of the song. It's so conflicted. I feel like the band doesn't know what they're doing, which is a lack of maturity or possibly experience. This is definitely not the most extreme song I've ever heard, though. Ricardo, thanks for recommending this. I hope I never hear it again. But I've got to disagree with that most extreme album idea. Other than the fact that it's anti-Semitic, that's a pretty extreme stance to take. I'll agree with that. But this track in particular is not super extreme. Those are my thoughts on this, though. Let me know in the comments, or don't. In fact, low engagement on this video might actually be fine. I definitely don't want this hitting the algorithm, although it probably will. I am fully prepared to moderate this video a lot heavier than I usually do, knowing what happened last time we had something similar on the channel. So if you want to comment, I'm not going to tell you don't. I would love to have conversations as long as everybody is critical and open-minded. In the description box, you can find some links for all sorts of stuff. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll continue on with this week's theme of indie rock, hopefully finding some stuff a bit brighter. And we'll do another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.